The night air outside Meghan and Harry's California estate was thick, heavy with the kind of silence that pressed against your ears, almost whispering secrets you weren't supposed to hear. Inside, the mansion seemed alive, though no one could quite see who, or what, was orchestrating its hidden symphony. The nanny, a quiet woman named Clara, had been the invisible guardian of Archie and Lilibet for years, and now, finally, she had decided to speak. Shadows behind the palace walls. Clara's confession began at a discreet café tucked away in the hills, where the last thing anyone expected was a world-shattering revelation. The journalist across from her leaned in, sensing the tremor in her voice, the nervous tap of her fingers against the cup. She had been sworn to silence, bound by promises whispered in the dark corners of the home, but now those bonds were unraveling. "They think the world sees only what they want," Clara said, her eyes darting to the shadows outside the window. "But there are layers they can't control." She spoke first of the nursery, the pristine rooms with whitewashed walls and designer toys, but beneath the surface, there were tensions no one ever suspected. She told of whispered arguments late at night, the kind that didn't reach the public eye, debates about the children that left invisible scars on the walls and perhaps, even deeper, on their young minds. Clara's voice trembled as she recounted the first incident she could never forget, a phone call, muffled and urgent, in which Meghan's voice cracked, not with anger, but with fear. She couldn't reveal the contents directly, certain words were forbidden, but she hinted at threats, shadowy figures that seemed almost unreal, the kind that existed only in paranoia, or so one might think. Yet the unease in the house had been palpable, electric even. By the second week, Clara had begun to notice patterns in the household, subtle but unsettling. Doors would click open at odd hours, shadows moving too swiftly down hallways. She caught glimpses of men in suits outside the estate, disappearing when she tried to get a closer look. There were secret deliveries, small packages marked with cryptic symbols, and notes left under pillows for Archie, notes that seemed innocent but carried undertones she couldn't decipher at the time. Hidden corridors and buried truths. The deeper she got into her duties, the more Clara realized she was being watched, though she didn't know by whom. It wasn't the usual surveillance cameras or the hired security staff. No, this was something subtler, more invasive. Every choice she made, every conversation she had, seemed to ripple across an invisible network she couldn't see. One evening, she stumbled upon a hidden corridor, a narrow hallway behind a bookshelf in the study. It led to a room no one spoke of, a place that seemed abandoned but smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. Inside, she found photographs, intimate family moments taken without consent, and journals that revealed private thoughts of Meghan, thoughts she never intended anyone to read. The journals hinted at a life under constant scrutiny, a life in which even trust came with a cost. It was during one of these clandestine explorations that Clara noticed a series of locked drawers. When she finally picked the lock, a skill she had learned in her younger, wilder days, she discovered letters, sealed envelopes, addressed in handwriting she recognized as Meghan's. But these were not simple notes. They were confessions, sketches of hidden fears, and lists of names. Names of people who had entered their lives under the guise of friendship but were anything but. Clara's revelations didn't stop at the estate. She spoke of trips, family vacations that seemed idyllic to the public eye but were fraught with tension. Private planes that carried more than luggage, packages and documents too sensitive to ever see the light of day. And always, the unshakable feeling that someone was orchestrating everything from a distance, a puppeteer whose presence was never acknowledged but always felt. Then came the night of the most shocking revelation. Clara described a secret meeting in a secluded garden at midnight. Meghan had summoned her with urgency, her usual calm replaced by a brittle edge. There, under the moonlight, Meghan had handed her a folder, thick with documents, photographs, and a small USB drive. "Whatever happens," Meghan had whispered, "this must never leave this garden. Ever." Clara had agreed, though inside, a storm was brewing. Because in that folder, she later realized, were secrets that could change everything. The public facade, the private reality, the unspoken rules that governed who saw what and when. And yet, even as she prepared to reveal them, she knew danger was not just possible, it was inevitable. As Clara finished her recounting for the journalist, a sudden knock at the cafe door made her flinch. A shadow lingered in the doorway, just for a moment, before disappearing into the night. She didn't look up again. Her story was far from over, and the next chapter would prove more perilous than anything she had already revealed. The unraveling of secrets. The morning sun did little to brighten Clara's mood. The café where she had begun to spill the house's secrets now felt like a trap, the shadows in the corners watching her every move. The documents, photographs, and USB drive she carried were more than just pieces of evidence. They were keys to a labyrinth of lies, betrayals, and hidden ambitions. She knew the moment she left, the walls of the estate were already alive with whispers about her silence being broken. Clara's first stop was a quiet office tucked in a nondescript building downtown. Here, the journalist had set up a secure space to review the contents she had risked her life to collect. As she laid out the documents, she realized just how deep the web extended. The files contained private communications, emails and letters, hinting at manipulations that reached far beyond what anyone imagined. "She's protecting more than just herself," Clara muttered. "It's bigger. Much bigger." The journalist nodded, flipping through a series of photographs. Some were candid shots of Meghan in private moments with Archie and Lilibet, seemingly innocent, but one photo showed a shadowed figure peering through a window. Another revealed a meeting at an undisclosed location, faces blurred but gestures urgent. Clara felt a chill. These weren't just domestic secrets, they hinted at something orchestrated from the shadows, someone pulling strings while remaining unseen. Whispers of betrayal. Clara's memory returned to the night of the secret garden meeting. Meghan had handed her the folder and whispered urgently, "You have to understand, this isn't just about us. It's about protecting what's coming." At the time, Clara had no idea what "what's coming" meant. Now, looking at the documents, she began to piece it together. There were names, dates, and cryptic annotations that suggested a network of advisors, private investigators, and even former royal aides, all working covertly to shape the narrative around the family. The USB drive contained encrypted files. Clara had never been tech-savvy, but desperation forced her to learn. Hours later, in the dim light of her apartment, she decrypted its contents. Inside were recordings, private conversations, strategic discussions about media narratives, and plans for public appearances. Some recordings were damning, revealing tensions between key figures, disagreements over custody decisions, and hints that some incidents were deliberately staged to manipulate public perception. The most shocking revelation came in a video file labeled only with a date. The footage showed Meghan and Harry in a heated argument, their voices tense and emotional, discussing someone who had been leaking details to the press. But the twist was in the background. A figure, partially obscured, monitoring the argument through a security feed, taking notes, and apparently reporting back to a larger, unseen entity. Clara's heart pounded. Someone inside the estate had been watching them all along, even their private moments, and the implications were terrifying. Her next encounter was equally perilous. A mysterious text arrived on her phone, "Stop digging. Some truths are dangerous." Clara's pulse raced. Whoever sent the message knew exactly what she had and where she was. She realized that the world outside was no longer just a witness to the unfolding drama. It was a predator, circling closer with every revelation she exposed. Driven by courage and fear in equal measure, Clara arranged one final meeting with the journalist, this time at a deserted park under the cover of twilight. There, she shared the most dangerous piece of evidence, a letter written in Meghan's hand, detailing a confrontation with a high-level insider who had threatened the family if certain demands weren't met. The letter spoke of trust broken, alliances betrayed, and a revelation that could shake the public image of Meghan and Harry to its core. As they spoke, headlights flashed in the distance. A car slowly approached, stopping just out of reach. Clara froze, the weight of everything she had uncovered pressing down like a physical force. The journalist reached for her hand. "They're here," he said quietly. "You have to move now." Clara tucked the folder and USB drive into a backpack and ran, her mind racing. Behind her, the mansion loomed, silent and seemingly innocent, yet hiding decades of secrets, manipulation, and whispers that could topple lives. She realized the story was no longer hers alone, it belonged to the world, but revealing it would come at a cost she couldn't yet measure. By the time she disappeared into the shadows, one truth was clear. The nanny who had once been invisible had become the keeper of a storm. And storms, once unleashed, never let go. As Clara vanished into the night, the wind carried a whisper of what was to come. Truths that could no longer be contained, alliances that would crumble, and secrets that had been buried for too long. Somewhere behind the walls of the mansion, shadows shifted, watching, waiting. She knew one thing with terrifying clarity: once the story was out, nothing would ever be the same. The world would see the family as she had seen them, not as a flawless image, but as a fragile web of love, fear, and betrayal. And in that silence, one question lingered, chilling and relentless: who would survive the storm that was about to break? The answer, Clara realized, would come at a price no one could predict.